Welcome to Fully Booked, the bookish podcast where I'll chat about all things book and reading related. Whether you're a new or a pro reader, there's something for everyone to learn. I'm here to help you on your reading journey and find that next great read that will keep you fully booked. Hello, readers, and welcome to episode 42 of Fully Booked. I'm your host, Natalie, and today's episode, we're going to be going through my mid-year wrap-up for 2025. Now, I'm really excited for today's episode because I never got to do a mid-year wrap-up on the podcast last year because I started the podcast late last summer, so it was kind of just too late by that point to do one, but I get to do one this year on the pod. And I have to say, I feel like this mid-year wrap-up is also a good personal check-in for myself and see how far I've come along on my reading journey within this year, what types and genres of books I've been picking up, if I've found any new favorite authors, I guess if I've been finding a lot of 5-star reads, all that good stuff. And I have to say, I was preparing for today's episode, so I was checking my Goodreads, my Fable, and then my own personal trackers and stats. And I think there are some areas where I've been doing well in terms of genres and new authors, like I was saying before. And then there's other, I guess, more metric-based goals that I set for myself that, let's just say, we're still working on some of those. And others might even need to be totally reworked and adapted, which is totally fine because, actually, as I'm filming this today, 2025 isn't even halfway over. So we got lots of time to cover all the bases for the rest of the year. But before we get into today's wrap-up, let's do a quick dab of the day, as always. Now, you guys are used to seeing me drinking black coffee or water. I don't usually have that many fun drinks when I'm filming, but today I actually decided to make an iced strawberry latte for once, and I have to say, I think it turned out pretty well. So actually, I'll hold it up for the camera now. This is what it looks like. I feel like the camera's not picking up the color that well, but I basically made my own strawberry puree, blending strawberries and some sugar together in my blender, and then I just have my coffee and milk layer on ice on top of that. And it's interesting because normally I don't like fruity style coffee drinks, but I honestly purely made this one for the beautiful aesthetic. When I just saw pictures of it, I couldn't help myself and want to try making it, and I have to say, it's not too bad, and I think I will try making it again. And then for my outfit, I am wearing my usual book club shirt, but I actually did try layering it over this new dress that I got from Aritzia, and I'm gonna have to stand up for this next part because you guys are not gonna be able to see otherwise. So yeah, as you can see, I got my t-shirt on, and then I literally just have this is actually a summer dress from Sunday Best from Aritzia, and yeah, I just put this t-shirt over it instead to kind of give it a different look. Obviously, I love how this dress looks on its own, and maybe I'll show it to you guys at some point. It's very cute, perfect for summer, but yeah, just to kind of mix up, I don't know, my t-shirt look, and yeah, pair it with what looks like a skirt. Yeah, I just decided to put this on to film today, and I think it's really cute for summer. And then for book of the day, I have mainly two going on that I'm going to tell you guys about. So the first one is I'm reading Allegiant by Veronica Roth, which obviously is the third book in the Divergent trilogy. And I have to say, as much as I wanted to finish the series, and it's actually literally on my reading goals for this year, was to reread that series. And I'm happy that I have now picked up the third book. I'm just not really in the mood for it. I don't know what happened. I got 30% of the way in, but that was probably about a week ago, or I haven't picked up the book since last week, so I'm not sure how that's gonna go. I'm hoping, though, I can still get this book done before the end of the month because we're only halfway through June, again, as I'm filming this, so we will see about that. And then the other book I'm reading, which I actually just started, I'm so excited. I started Sounds Like Love by Ashley Poston, which is her latest release, and it literally just came out today, so happy release day to that book. I got my hands on it earlier this morning, and I read the first two chapters. I'm gonna be honest, the premise of this one did not catch my attention as much as I think some of the other romance releases that have been coming out this year. I was so excited because I love Ashley Poston as an author in general. I think she's really good at integrating magical realism into the romance plots in her stories, but also being able to talk about a lot of mature and different themes in her romance books. So I'm still excited for this one and where that concept is going to be taken and the whole storyline and whatnot, but I'm not very sold on it immediately. I'm also not really sold on I guess our FMC and MMC so far. Their interactions, obviously I've only read a little bit, so I don't have that much context, but yeah, I'm not sold yet, but we're early in, so we'll see. Alright, so to start off, I pulled some stats from my Goodreads and my Fable to see, again, how many books I've read so far in the year, genres, and whatnot. So we're going to go through all that first. And if you see me looking down or off to the sides, because I have stuff pulled up on my phone, and I'm just going to be reading it off to you guys. So, to start off, I have been averaging about 8.3 books a month, which is not too bad, but I feel like it doesn't totally reflect because obviously some months I read a bit more, some months I read a bit less, and also technically the month of June is not over when I'm filming this, so if I read a couple more books this month, then that number will probably increase a bit, but that's, yeah, my average for now. And then my average overall rating, which this is the overall rating for the whole year so far, is 3.9 stars, which is slightly better than last year's rating, where I think last year I ended up at 3.8 stars. So we are increasing from last year already, and hopefully if I get more 5-star reads, then we can keep on the upward trend. And then for total books read so far, I'm actually very proud because I literally finished a book yesterday, which I forgot to mention earlier when I was talking about books. But I have now read, as of yesterday, 50 out of 80 books total for the year, which according to my Goodreads puts me 14 books ahead of schedule. And I don't want to get ahead of myself again, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to reach the 80 book mark this year. That feels, again, pretty attainable for me, which is why I made it my goal for 2025. But whether I will reach 100 books again, that's the real story. And then Fable puts your most read genres, although I'm kind of confused how they do this and classify and tag books, because I've noticed you can obviously tag books by multiple genres, but I don't know if it's only done by users or if they have a database or something and they use it to tag each of the books in their library as well. So I feel like this is not going to be totally reflective of all the genres of books that I've read and whatnot, but according to my Fable, my most read genres are romance, YA, literary fiction, fiction, and fantasy. And then the numbers are split up as so, where I've read 26 romance, 10 YA, 9 literary fiction, 8 fiction, and 6 fantasy. And this is why I say again, I don't know how reliable this is because I don't know what fiction means. I have no clue how that differs, if at all, from literary fiction or other types of genre fiction that would be on Fable. But anyways, it's funny because just looking at these stats or numbers alone, it looks like I've read a lot of romance. But I feel like I have been picking up more books of different genres and yeah, even trying new authors this year. I feel like I found a lot of new favorite authors as well, which I feel like is a good thing. So I'm pretty happy about that. So I think, yeah, overall, even though the stats don't always reflect, reading has been going pretty well so far this year. And before I continue, I know I just talked about reading less romance and wanting to try all the different types of genres this year, and this is one of my goals, but I have to say, I think this goal is going to go out the window over the next couple of months with summer and the warmer weather ahead. Because I don't know if anybody else can relate, but I am just such a seasonal reader and I guess in tune with the weather and the temperature outside. So when the sun is shining, when it's like 25, 30 degrees outside, I'm just not in the mood to pick up fantasy. I just can't do it. As soon as the summer months hit, it has to be light, fluffy, super easy, fun romances, or just any other genres that are more on the light and easy side. And fantasy just doesn't scream light and easy to me when the summer months hit. And I'm sorry for those of you who do really like fantasy and you will read fantasy all year round. But yeah, I personally just can't do it. So unfortunately for me, fantasy is going to be put away until the fall. Actually, in fact, I think the last fantasy that I read was A Song to Drown Rivers. I read that. I forget when I read that exactly, but it was back in May. And yeah, I think that's probably the last of fantasy I'll be touching until maybe, if I'm lucky, the end of August. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be gone, and you guys are going to be seeing a lot more romance being read on the podcast. Anyways, to keep things moving along, let's start going through my goal review and see how I've been doing so far this year. So, the first goal that I had written down was to read 80 books. Obviously, this is for the full year, but since I have already read half of that goal, actually I've surpassed half of that goal, I'm going to say that's a yes. And then the second one that I wrote down was read less romance and explore other genres. Again, this wasn't tracking very well in terms of on my Fable and the genres it was showing that I'm reading. But again, I feel like I have been reading different genres, and I'm going to go through some of the favorite books from this year so far later on this episode. But just a reminder that if you do want to hear a bit more in depth about every single book that I've read so far this year, then definitely just go back and watch all of my reading wrap-ups that I put out this year so far. Or even go back to last year's reading wrap-ups if you want to as well, because I'm really not going to be diving in and doing reviews in today's episode. It's just going to be more of a glance at a couple interesting books that I read this year. And then the third goal that I had written down was to do more hybrid reading. So I guess this just meant any formats, so physical, ebook, and audiobooks. And I think that's been going pretty well so far. I think it'd be going better if I regularly subscribe to Audible or Spotify or whatnot. Yeah, which is not quite the case right now. I'll go into that a little bit more in a minute. But yeah, I feel like overall it's been good. I think one thing that I want to say has also been helping is actually borrowing physical books from the library, because so far, even earlier this year, I was only borrowing books through Libby, so getting ebooks to my Kindle, which is also helpful to be able to get books at a free cost. But definitely going to the library has been helping, and it's been enhancing my reading experience to get to pick up some more physical books again. But it's definitely, again, been helping me able to get to enjoy the experience of reading physical books, even if I can't keep the book. And then next, I had some actions written down from the start of the year that I'm also going to go over right now. So first one I had written down was read 6 to 7 books a month. Again, since my average was around 8 books a month, according to my stats that I told you guys earlier, I think we're doing pretty well on that part. So that one I'm going to say is a yes, and hopefully we keep around that for the rest of the year. I think so far I checked my Fable and looked month by month, and I only had 1 month where I read 7 books, and then the rest of them were all above that. So yeah, again, hopefully we can keep that up. And then the second one that I had written down was rereading the Divergent series. So again, this one we're on the right track because, as I just told you guys at the start of this episode, I have started rereading Allegiant. So that will get done. And even if I don't finish that book within the month of June, I assume that we're still going to finish the series by the end of the year because it's only a trilogy. It is not a long series, and that should be quite doable. And then the next one that I had written down was using Spotify Premium for audiobooks. Now, when I mentioned not having subscriptions regularly to Audible or Spotify Premium, and that's something I wish that I had, that is because I really wanted to have the goal of picking up more audiobooks, just because as much as I would love to be able to sit down and read every single book that is on my TBR, I just don't have the time sometimes. And audiobooks, as I've said before on the podcast, are the biggest hack for getting to read books, or even if you are reading, get a physical or an ebook copy, to be able to pick it up when you're on the go, like in the car, on a walk or run, or wherever you may be where, your hands are busy and whatnot. It's just such a hack, and it's one that I definitely want to keep utilizing this year. But it's kind of unfortunate because I found I wasn't listening to a lot of music the past couple months, so I actually canceled my Spotify Premium at the start of the year, which I kind of regretted at some times because, again, I wanted audiobook listening hours. I probably will subscribe for a month or two, with the summer and the warmer weather coming up because I've been finding myself outdoors a lot more, like going even on short walks, like after my lunch break. I've also been doing some runs because I have a 10K later in the year, so I kind of need to keep up with that and eventually start training more for that. I'm just finding myself outdoors a lot more. And as much as I love listening to podcasts when I go on a walk or a run, actually, if you guys know and do it as well, so I listen to podcasts on 2 times speed, and even long podcast episodes won't last me for a long walk or run. And I feel like audiobooks are just better because at least I know I have a couple hours that, I can just put on and go for a run and not have to worry about finding something. So I feel like that's why, I want to have some platforms where I can easily access and listen to audiobooks. Yeah, I will say it has been helpful because I did get a promo from Audible a couple months ago. So I've had 3 credits to use and I have 1 more credit left. And then I might cancel Audible after that. I feel like Audible, I'm sorry to say, for those of you who do use it, I do feel like it's a bit of a ripoff, though, for how much you pay and only getting 1 credit a month. And Spotify is at least a better deal because at least if you also listen to music, then you get that as well, and then no ads and all the features it comes with. So I probably, will have Spotify Premium for a little bit for the rest of the year, so I can, try to get in a couple more audiobooks. And then the last action I had written down was to do 2 to 3 readathons this year. And you guys probably already know if you follow along my other socials. I did do 1 readathon back in February, but otherwise, the readathon goal this year, that has not been going well at all. And I have to say, I feel like readathons have kind of been trending less in the online book community and book content creator space, or at least on BookTube. I feel like not as many people are doing at least the 24-hour readathons anymore, because let's be honest, they are exhausting. And personally for me, it's just so hard lately to find the time where I can sit down for such a long period of time and just read. I think if I'm lucky, I will try to slot one in for the end of the summer, later on this summer to try to do. Let's just say this is definitely one that I'm just putting to the side, and I'm not going to stress out about this one anymore. Hey readers, I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. And hear me out before you hit skip. I'm so grateful for all my listeners who are with me on this reading journey, and I'd like to ask that if you haven't yet, please leave a rating and review as it helps others find the podcast. Also, please consider supporting the podcast financially as it helps me bring you more exciting content, and you'll get some extras like bonus and subscriber-only episodes, early access to new episodes, and much more. The link to donate will be in the show notes below, or you can go to buymeacoffee.com/fullybookedpod. Thank you so much again for choosing to listen to Fully Booked, and now back to the episode. Okay, and then to finish off today's wrap-up, we're going to be going through some highlights, and I actually just pulled a bunch of questions from the mid-year bookish tag that I've seen people done in the past. I'm not going to go through all the questions in that tag, but I just picked out a couple that I thought would be able to highlight some of the most interesting books that I've read or haven't read yet this year. So starting off, the first one that I have written down is favorite books so far. Now, I'm going to tell you guys, I had to think a lot for these questions and which books I want to choose and talk about. But for this one, I picked My Friends by Friedrich Bachmann. And I think it's just one where, I'm going to be honest, again, you guys know my memory's pretty bad, but I feel like I think about the characters from this book a lot still, or at least somewhat on an everyday basis. And when characters from books stick with me and I still think about them and what happened to them in that story, or I wonder what could happen to them in the future, like I imagine things, I feel like that's the mark of a book that was really good. And I think Friedrich Bachmann's stories and characters just really stick with you because of how much they go through, how emotional they are. But I think this one I really liked the most, actually, out of his books I've read so far, which have all been within this year, funnily enough. But this one I liked the most because of the concepts and themes of art and adolescence, and even how 2 characters who were kind of different, like I think Louise or Louisa and Ted, were able to relate to one another through artwork. And I just thought, all these concepts and themes were highlighted and talked about so beautifully. And also, some of the trauma that each of the characters went through and how it affected them in their adolescence, but then also in their adulthood, and how they faced it and kind of made amends or resolutions with some of those things that they dealt with in the past. Friedrich Bachmann is just such a master at talking about these pretty hard topics, but in a compassionate way. You just get so much emotional impact and also reflection from his stories and from his characters. It's just so good. I feel like he is one of the new favorite authors of this year that I would recommend anyone to read, even if you don't like reading in general, or if you want to dive into more literary fiction type books. Okay, next one I had written down is Biggest Disappointment. And this one's so sad, but unfortunately I ended up picking The Ministry of Time by Kellyanne Bradley. Now, you guys probably remember me talking about this. I think it might have been my TBR follow-up, actually, is when I deep dived into this book. And yeah, this is one that I had very high expectations for. A lot of content creators like Jamie Falk and others, this was their 5-star read from last year. So I feel like this is one that I predicted was going to be above 4 stars. Yeah, 4.5 stars, maybe, knowing me, because I'm a little bit picky with my reads. So it was very, very sad that this ended up being rated even lower than that. And I don't want to go into all the details I did back in my review, but I think just plot-wise, this book dropped off too much for me. I know this is a sci-fi, more of a literary fic novel, so obviously it's not supposed to be very plot-driven, but I just feel like there wasn't enough going on at times in the book for me to just enjoy and rate it higher, which is so sad because there were so many good themes and concepts discussed in this book that were unique and interesting, especially with the time travel element being literal, but also kind of metaphorical in this book at the same time. If you've read it already, you'll know what I mean, I think. But yeah, this one, biggest disappointment. Okay, next question on this list is biggest surprise. And for this one, I ended up picking Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. Now, I think the reason, again, this one was a big surprise for me was because this book wasn't on my radar. It's a little bit older at this point. It's one that's been low on my TBR in general, but I did have a friend recommend it to me a couple months ago and decided to pick it up and give it a try, and I was not disappointed with this one. I think I ended up rating this one 4.5 stars if I remember correctly, and I feel like this one is also surprised because in general, this book, I feel like it's promoted as a mystery, and while the mystery element is there throughout the whole story, and it does play a bigger role near the end of the book, I feel like the historical fiction elements and I don't know, storyline or narrative, whatever you call it, is a lot more of the focus throughout the rest of the book. And especially if you like historical fiction like Kristen Hanna, this is a book that you'll really enjoy. So yeah, again, even though this one is a bit older, it's probably not on most people's radars by now. I feel like I'd recommend a lot of people go back and read this if you haven't already. Okay, next one on the list is new favorite author. Now, this one, I went back and forth so many times because I think this is the year so far in my reading journey that I have picked up the most books by new authors. So one I have not previously really looked at or given a chance in the past. I don't know what really happened. I feel like it just kind of happened by accident, but this has just been the year of trying different authors, which has been really good for me overall. So again, I went back and forth, but I ended up picking Catherine Center for this one. Again, I probably have multiple new favorite authors, but I think the reason why I picked her was because I just love the way she writes her romances differently and the real life struggles that her characters deal with, which is interesting because I've only read 2 of her books so far, but both of them I loved, and I know she's an author that I'm going to pick up probably every single book on her backlist and read them all. I feel like there are other new favorite authors that I found this year that I really enjoyed, maybe that one book that I picked up by them, but I'm kind of not sure if I would pick up every single thing they read. But she is just one of those authors that has done it for me, and I have to say with this, I guess, question, it's made me realize how much my taste has changed because if you guys can't tell already, I am still primarily a romance reader. I will always pick up a romance book any time of the year, really. But my taste has changed where I feel like a couple years ago, I was still into the very more light, easy, and fun rom-coms, ones where it's just all fun and lots of banter between the main characters and chemistry, and all of that good stuff. But I feel like lately my taste has been shifting more towards very emotional, more mature, more character-driven, and even literary fiction type romances where the characters are just dealing with a lot more. They might even be in different stages of life than I am. But yeah, that is just what I've been enjoying and gravitating towards. And Catherine Center is the perfect balance where her books still have that lighthearted rom-com feel and setup. So if you like that, you still get to enjoy that in her books. But then her characters also go through some very real struggles where I think the two books that I've read so far, one character was going through, I guess, being a caretaker for a parent, and then the other one dealt with body dysmorphia, and your own self-image and whatnot. So yeah, I just like how she ties those in, but in a very realistic way. Because I feel like with some authors who do put in those more realistic real life struggles in their books, they still kind of do it in a sense where it's kind of romanticized to me and everything ends so happily and so perfectly that it's just not believable to me as the reader. And even though they try to put it in, and some parts of romance books can be cathartic, it just ends so nicely that I just can't really picture it. But I think Catherine Center does the perfect balance where her characters go through these things and they, it's a romance book. They still do have a happy ending with their love interest, but it also ends in a way that's more realistic. Like it's something that you would actually experience in your real life, and that not every day is going to be perfect, but it's still good. Like life is still good for the characters. And I think, yeah, she just has something about being able to bring out compassion in humans or in her characters. Yeah, she's one of the types that the story always just goes beyond the romance. Also, such a random side note, but I always enjoy reading her author notes. She always just writes the best, and you can just tell that she seems like a truly genuine and kind human being. I feel like she's definitely one of the authors that's now high up on my list that I would love to be able to talk to her or interview her at some point in time. Yeah, that would be probably a big goal and a big dream for the podcast. I have obviously multiple authors that I would love to talk to at some point in time, but yeah, she's definitely one of them, and that has been cemented this year for me. And for those of you watching on video right now, yes, I did put a sweater on because my desk is located right underneath our air vents in our apartment. So I'm getting a blast of AC down on me as I've been recording, and I've been getting a little cold sitting here. So I just put a sweater on. But anyways, going back to these questions, we have a couple more to go through before we get to the end, and a couple more titles that I'm excited to read. So this next one is anticipated releases for the rest of 2025. So I have 2 written down for this one. There's probably more than that, but these are just the ones I'm most excited for so far. So I put down Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross and People Watching by Hannah Bonham Young. I don't know if it's even excitement for like these 2 books specifically, but it's just in general because again, these are also authors that I have discovered this year, and I really enjoy their stories and their writing style. Now, Rebecca Ross, I've only read the Divine Rivals duology, but that is also another one that I just think about so often ever since I read it. And I'm so excited that they're turning that one into a movie now as well. I cannot wait for that to be released. But for now, I want to go back and read through the rest of her backlist. I already have the Elements of Cadence duology is on my TBR. That might get read within this year. We'll see. But I'm also hoping to read this release as soon, maybe before it comes out. Actually, these 2 books I did request on NetGalley, but I have been patiently waiting to get approved for them. So I'm really hoping I get that as soon as possible and I can get to read them prior to the actual release day. But if not, I'll still be reading those most likely. And then Hannah Bonham Young, this is interesting. I only read Out of the Woods so far, which was her latest release actually earlier this year. And that one I really enjoy because I just find that her books utilize more rare tropes, or I don't know if rare is the right word, but more unexpected tropes, and she writes about them in a different way compared to other romance authors. And I just like some of the things that she highlights in her books, but she still does it again in that lighthearted manner. I really enjoyed Out of the Woods. I really want to pick up Out on a Limb, because that's the one that deals with unexpected pregnancy and limb difference, and that's the one that she's most known for, that most people have read. So I'm hoping to pick that one up as well before I even get to People Watching. But yeah, People Watching has caught my eye. I'm gonna be honest, I actually do not know what that one is really about. I honestly just saw the cover of it. It looks very fall-like. There's like trees and falling leaves and stuff in the background on the cover, and I just figured fall time, actually when it comes out, I guess technically before fall, but if you consider September fall, it comes out early fall, so I think it'll be a great time to read it when it releases. Oh, and then I guess another note, I also don't know what Wild Reverence is about, except that it's a prequel, I believe, to the Divine Rivals duology. So we're set in that same world, but I think it's gonna go into more about the gods and stuff like that. I don't really remember. I've only seen a handful of people read it who got a copy of the Arc so far. So yeah, hopefully when that releases, or if I get a copy soon, then we'll see. Sorry guys, I actually lied. There was one I forgot to put on this list, and that's because this book is coming out in less than a month now, from the time of this recording. And that is Time of Your Life by Jessa Hastings. And the timing on this one was so interesting, or at least when she announced that this book was coming out, because as you guys know, I read Daisy Hates pretty recently, and I kid you not, the day that I finished Daisy Hates, The Great Undoing, she literally announces that she is dropping another book this year, which I was surprised because I thought The Conditions of Will was going to be the only book that she released this year, another one that I still haven't read. But yeah, I just had a bit of a gaping hole in my heart since finishing The Great Undoing and that ending. If you know, you know. And so now I really want to pick up any of her other books and just fill that hole that is in my heart. So I'm hoping this one will do it. I'm going to be honest, I do not know much about what this is going to be about, except that it's a romance between two celebrities. One, I think, is a musician or singer, and I think it takes place in the 90s. Actually, I have the Goodreads pulled up right now. Okay, it says it's 1995. So yes, takes place in the 90s, and yeah, there isn't that much more that I know about this book that's been released or anything. Yeah, this is one I'm really excited, and honestly, I might not have patience, and I might have to pick this one up as soon as it comes out. All right, and then the last question that we have for today is books you need to read by the end of 2025. Now, I was feeling ambitious when I wrote this, so let's see if this actually ends up happening. I can also see too that I wrote down a lot of duologies. So, anyways, I wrote down Magnolia Park's Into the Dark. I wrote down Elements of Cadence duology, which I just mentioned before, which is A River Enchanted and A Fire Endless. I also wrote down Shepherd King duology, One Dark Window, and Two Twisted Crowns. And then I wrote down A Study in Drowning and A Fury of Dreaming, which, FYI, that book is coming out very soon, I believe. I also wrote down Fourth Wing. That one should be obvious. And I also wrote down to reread The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I think this one should be interesting because I first read it as a teen, and then I reread it when I was in my early 20s. And now I want to see what I think being in my late 20s and rereading it again, because this is a book that I frequently told people over and over is my favorite, but I want to see how it keeps holding up in each, I guess, stage of my life, and kind of what new insights and whatnot that I gain from reading it as I get older. But yeah, those are just some of the books that I want to read by the end of 2025. Obviously, being a reader, there is more, but those are just some of the ones I want to note. I think Into the Dark is easily going to get read because, again, I have no patience. I need to read most of Jessa Hastings' books now, and I need that conclusion at least to the Magnolia side, since we're not getting the conclusion to the Daisy side yet, to have some closure and satisfaction. I also have one more Audible credit, which means I can get one more audiobook for that series, which is good because I love the audiobooks for these series. Highly recommend, by the way, if you are going to read the Magnolia Parks and Daisy Hates books. And then, yeah, the rest of these books, as you can tell, are fantasy because I really was hoping to read more fantasy, especially once the fall months come around. And A lot of people are probably gasping when I said Fourth Wing. I've mentioned probably a couple other times on the podcast or at some point that yes, I have not read Fourth Wing. I don't know why, to be honest, because the premise of the dragons and the school setting I believe that book is set in sound really fun, but I think it's just because I have not been that into fantasy the past couple months. And even this year, I've picked up a couple fantasies, but not as many as I guess was predicting I would. So hopefully, again, when fall time comes around, that will really be the time for fantasy, and we will enter that era. And with that brings today's episode and my mid-year reading wrap-up to a wrap. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to all of my new favorite books, authors, all the books I've been reading so far and hope to read as the year goes on. If you did enjoy, be sure to rate and review the podcast, subscribe on YouTube, all that good stuff. And feel free to comment below any of your answers to the bookish tag questions that I had in this episode, or just anything else about how reading has been going for you in 2025. I would love to hear and see all your guys' comments below, or you can DM on socials if you're listening on audio only. As always, I do check as well. And I really do hope that all of us can have a good rest of the year in terms of reading, but also life in general. And no matter what may be happening in your stage of life right now, I really do hope everything is going well for all of you listening and watching. So, with all that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you back here in episode 43. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you were able to take away something, and be sure to follow the podcast for more bookish content. Until next time, stay fully booked, and I'll talk to you soon.